The presider, a slender man, slightly taller than the average height, possibly 4 digits shorter than Dekkard, with short-cut sandy and silver hair, turned and gestured for Dekkard to enter. "You're a little early, Steffan." "More than a little," admitted Dekkard. "I didn't want to be late, and delays always occur when it's most inconvenient. I also wanted to thank you again for being so accommodating." "It was free at this time." Boussin smiled as he went on. "Emeralda's been a good parishioner, and since you and Avril will be living with her for a time, how could I resist the opportunity to have another young couple become part of the ward, especially a distinguished young couple?" "We may not be quite so faithful in attending as Emeralda," Dekkard replied. "I'll have to spend time in Garlock, since that's now my district." "I understand. There have been other counselors attending during my time here." The presider gestured to the chairs in front of his desk. "We might as well sit." "Thank you. How did you come to be a presider, might I ask?" "I actually trained as a chemist, and there were questions that science couldn't answer, not to my satisfaction. Science is good at explaining how. I found it lacking in answering why. Perhaps it's my weakness, but why do we think? Or think we think? Better than other creatures. Some believe that sea bears are as intelligent as children, but they have no voices and no hands. Is it just random that we have hands and voices? Science so far cannot answer that question. There are fossilized bones that suggest we developed from creatures. But why us and not mountain ursinoids or sea bears?" Boussin shrugged. "Those questions led me here." "How did you get here?" Dekkard smiled. "It's a very long and simple story, but the mostly simple fact was I wasn't a very good artisan, and I turned out to have some ability as a security aide, where I slowly fell in love with my partner, who let me discover that by myself." "What about her?" "We're both reserved. Avril more than I, although most people wouldn't see that." "How are you finding being a counselor?" "Very carefully," replied Dekkard wryly. While Dekkard summarized how he'd gone from being a security aide to a counselor, what he didn't mention was that while he knew the routine and outward duties of a counselor, if only from observation, he had no first-hand political experience. There was also the added fact that counselors had become targets of either commercer-linked interests or of new meritorist demonstrators. Over the 4 months before the recent election, 5 counselors from the Council of 66 had been assassinated, and there had been 4 attempts on Premier Obrador when he'd still been a counselor, attempts that Dekkard and Avril had thwarted. So, you have to not only worry about learning how to be a counselor, but also deal with possible assassination attempts and being married. Dekkard pushed those thoughts away for the moment and finished his summary. Before long, the organist stopped practicing and began playing what Dekkard would have called prelude music. Then, Emeralda appeared, wearing an ankle-length teal dress with matching gloves, shoes, and nearly transparent headscarf. "Avril's ready, Presider Boussin." "So am I," said Dekkard as he stood, followed by Boussin. The presider smiled. "I won't be the one to hold up the ceremony. We'll give you a few minutes to get back to the bride, and then we'll take our places." "She looks so beautiful," said Emeralda, her voice catching just slightly. "You'll see." Then she turned and walked back toward the main entry to the chapel. A minute or so passed before Boussin said, "It's time." Dekkard handed the 2 rings to the presider. "I imagine you'll need these? It'll make the ceremony go a little easier." Dekkard and Boussin left the study, then walked along the corridor, paralleling the nave, before entering the chapel proper. Dekkard stopped just short of the middle of the center aisle and turned to face the rear of the chapel. Boussin took the low step up to the sanctuary and also turned, looking down the center aisle. Behind them was the usual golden-edged tapestry, hung from a shimmering brass rod that extended nearly the width of the sanctuary wall. Against a pale green background, 3 golden orbs formed an arc. Within the orb on the left was a silver-edged green maple leaf, while the middle and highest orb held a silver-edged ray of golden sunlight splitting a green waterspout, and the orb on the right portrayed the outline of an antique four-masted ship haloed with the reddish-gold light of a sunset on a calm sea. Though the tapestry changed each season, only the background color varied, currently a pale golden red for autumn.